Hello there, YouTube. I've got a bookish video for you. Now, I've spoken about this book in the past. This is one of my all-time favourite books, and I want to talk about it just because I want to promote it a little bit more. This is a book that I really love, and I want more people to read it. So, this is my case for The Neverending Story. I'm going to make a case for why this is a fantastic book and why more people should read it. I'm also going to review this specific volume. I'm going to describe what it's like. I'm going to show off some of the images from it and the slipcase and discuss what it's like to own it. This is a particularly nice edition to have. It comes in this slipcase. It looks like this on the shelf. It's very, very nice and snazzy. I'm very, very pleased to have this. The reason I'm so pleased to have this is that Folio announced this in early November, I believe, last year. May have been a bit earlier than that. Not by much. May have been a bit earlier, could have been October, but it wasn't very early. It was late in the year. The reason I know it was late in the year is that I didn't buy it. If it was earlier in the year, I would have bought it straight away. The fact that it was late in the year meant that I didn't buy it because I, as part of my family, we have a rule after the beginning of October that we don't buy any presents, anything that could be a present for ourselves. So anything that is well known to be something that you personally enjoy, you don't buy for yourself after October starts, because that gives everyone who is looking to buy you gifts something that they can buy you without wondering whether or not you're going to buy it for yourself. So say, for example, if there was a video game or a film that I was known to enjoy or be looking forward to, something that was coming out in, say, November or December, I wouldn't buy it for myself. Instead, I would make it known that I'm interested in it, and friends and family would discuss amongst themselves, and perhaps one of them would buy it for me. If they don't, come January, I'd be free to buy it for myself. And that's the way I've always operated. That's the way we all operate. So I didn't buy this. I would have been very, very annoyed if I hadn't received it, because on the 4th of January, I was looking on the Folio Society website, and it was out of production. Now, I've never known Folio to sell out or anything along those lines that quickly. Now, if I hadn't received this, I would have likely bought it with my with the first money I got in January, the first disposable money I had in January. Now, I wouldn't have had enough money to buy it until the end of January. So by the time I would have had the money to get it, it would have been out of production. It would have been sold out. And they're still sold out now. So, yeah, there's no way to get this as far as I know other than eBay. And every copy I've seen on eBay is over £400. Which is shocking. Like, I can only assume that Folio made this as a very limited print, believing that it wasn't as popular as it was, and it sold out massively. So I'm going to show it off, and I apologise in advance if I'm now contributing to a bit of FOMO, because I understand that no one else can get this unless they're prepared to pay second-hand prices. I'm also very aware that there are people who are going to be very, very bothered by the fact that I'm handling this book, because obviously this is one that you can't replace, you can't get another copy of. I'm going to handle it, I'm going to read from it, I'm going to enjoy it. I do not buy these books to stick them on a shelf and collect them. I buy them because I want to enjoy them, which means that I will be reading from this book. I will be enjoying its illustrations. I'll be reading the text in this book. I own a paperback. I could read The Neverending Story whenever I want. I want to be able to read from this copy. So, this is the slipcover, and it has a little quote there which reads, "What you don't wish for will always be beyond your reach." It's a very nice slipcover. It's very in keeping with the feel of The Neverending Story, I think. the colours that they've picked are exactly what I imagine when I think the Neverending Story. I always think of oranges, browns, golds, and black and silver. So this is very much how I imagine the Neverending Story should be presented. This is how I would have imagined it. Like, this is pretty much perfect. Now, obviously I've not read from this edition yet, but to give you an example of what it's like, the text is in 2 colours, so I will show off a page that shows this well. Just being very careful with it. As you can see, the text is in both a maroon red and a deep blue, representing both the 2 aspects of the story, because the story takes place both in the real world and in Fantasia. So, depending on where you are, the story is in different colours, which is a nice way of doing that. I like that. There are some really, really nice illustrations. There are illustrations throughout as well. There are small illustrations that are just on the book like that. Just little illustrations. But there are full page illustrations. Which I'm just going to try and find some. I don't want to show off any that might be spoilers. So let's see what I can find here. Here's one of the early illustrations. So very, very nice, very minimalist actually, for the kind of illustrations that they're doing. It works well. There's a certain abstract quality to them which I quite like. And the beginning of chapters all have a beginning piece of letter art, like so, which is a nice little touch. The illustrations throughout continue. It is a very, very nice, almost whimsical feel to it. The binding seems quite sturdy. It's sewn binding, and as they all are for Folio Society, it seems particularly sturdy. There is no cloth bookmark. There is no ribbon bookmark, anything like that, which is often included in these folio books, or these kinds of collector's edition books. They often have a bookmark included in them. This doesn't have it. It doesn't have one, and I actually prefer that it doesn't have it, because I find that those bookmarks tend to warp the pages, because they're usually jammed into the pages and held in place, which means there's usually a warping inside the pages, which I don't generally like. So I'm fine with that. I have some very thin paper bookmarks that I like to use, so I'll be using those. That's fine by me. I have no need for a ribbon bookmark. I find them, they tend to fray anyway. I do like the design on the edges. It's very, very nice. It's a shame that that's hidden when it's on the shelf, actually, because it's very, very delicate and very nicely designed. So that's the book. The cover itself is it's not leather, but it's also not quite cloth either. It feels almost like a vinyl, if that makes sense. It's like a very tough vinyl covering. It's probably a taut cloth vinyl blend. It's a very nice, very tactile cover, and it's very pleasing to touch. I'd say that it's a little harder than you would expect, but it is very, very pleasing. Definitely something that I appreciate. I'd say it's going to be a lot harder to stain or damage than the clothbounds that they've done previously, such as the ones they did for the Song of Ice and Fire. I imagine those are going to stain much more easily because they're cloth. It's going to be more hard wearing, so it would be more practical to actually read from. It's also going to be much tougher, so it shouldn't bend or break or warp quite so hard. Though if it does warp or bend, it's going to be a lot harder to get back into shape. So it's one you're going to want to look after. You want to keep it in the slipcase, I'd say. So that's the physical book discussed. What about the story? What about the text? What is it that I love about it? Well, I would say that the Neverending Story is one of those classic fantasy stories, and I believe that the Neverending Story is unique in that it manages to tell a whimsical fantasy story that is perfectly designed to appeal to the teenage young adult mind. Like, I'd say it's almost laser focused for a 13 to 14-year-old mind. It can work for anyone from about 10 to about 17, 18, and they'll get the same kind of message. So anyone above that age is probably old enough that they're going to scoff at the message, because the message is designed to be internalised by a child, I think. I hope that it's a message that people will take in. It's one I did. But I think it's a very good, very positive message. The beginning of the story is one that a lot of people are familiar with because it's the same as the film. The film, I do feel, does things slightly better. There are slight changes to some of the characters that I feel make it a little bit more consistent with what we'd expect from fantasy. But what I do like is that it's completely non-Tolkien. There's no Tolkien-like races, there's no Tolkien expectations. This is a whimsical fantasy that is very different. So, as they're travelling from place to place, meeting different people, different fantastical creatures, the whole purpose is to teach the main character, Bastian, that he should be adventurous, and he should have dreams, he should have wishes, that he should want to dream and read, and to give the concept of imagination this lofty ideal. And that's a good thing. That's what the film does as well. It's that kids are... It's the idea that kids are no longer reading, they're no longer having this sense of imagination, and that's what's killing Fantasia. That we need to have imagination, we need to have dreams, we need to want, and we need to have desire. But when that becomes ambition, that's when it becomes dangerous. And when it becomes power, it becomes dangerous. The second half of the book is not discussed and is not portrayed in the film. And there's a reason for that. And that is because it's impossible to make it into a film that would be acceptable for children. The second half of the book is where Bastian gains the power of Orin. When he's reading from the Neverending Story, following the story of Atreyu, he doesn't realise the story of Atreyu is happening in this other world. And when he's drawn into the book, at the end of Atreyu's journey, he gains the power to wish. And the wish at the, somewhat of a spoiler for the film, though it is an obvious ending because it's very fairy tale. His wish is, of course, to save Fantasia. And when he does, he realises that one wish isn't enough. And the ending of the film describes it very well. That while he's wished to save Fantasia, he now needs to rebuild it. And it's not just rebuild, you don't just rebuild it with one wish. You now need to continuously wish. You need to rebuild everything. You now have the power to wish, so wish things into existence. wish everything back into existence and more. Make Fantasia what you want it to be. You now have the power of Orin, so make Fantasia anew. That was the power he was given, and it is played off as the ending of the film. It is just the last minute of the film is, and Bastian does that. He makes many wishes and goes on many adventures as he rebuilds Fantasia, and it shows Fantasia being rebuilt. But that's not where the book ends. No, the book shows what would happen if you gave a child that power. Because a child with that power would become cruel and sadistic. And that's exactly what happens. Bastian becomes a cruel, sadistic, psychotic maniac. And the world of Fantasia becomes one of the most horrific places because there is a psychotic child with the power to wish anything into existence or out of existence whenever he wants. And the whole second half of the book is teaching perspective, responsibility, and morality. Teaching a sense that you can't just do what you want, that you should have boundaries on power. And it's a message that is told very, very carefully. It teaches children to seek power, but to seek power for purpose. Not just to seek it so that you can maniacally control everything, because that is disastrous. And I don't think that anything has really done that story well in a way that children can engage. It's been done well. Other things have done the power corrupts story very well. Like a good example is the TV show The Boys, which I believe is based on a comic. That does a very good job of showing what happens if superheroes were real. It shows exactly what kind of maladjusted person a superhero would end up being, because they have so much power and they can do whatever they want. They would become maniacal sociopaths. But it's definitely not suitable for children. The Neverending Story is. It tells a story, but it does it without it being harrowing, without it being so horrible that a child can't take part. A child can read this and it will give them that point of self-reflection. That's what I think the Neverending Story does. That's what I think it provides. And that's why I think this is the single most important piece of fantasy fiction that you can give to a child. It's not my favourite. It's flawed. It's not perfect. But it is beautiful in its own way. And I believe that the Neverending Story should be a must-read for all teens and children. I would, if I was having children, as soon as they turned 10 or so, I would make sure this was available for them. And if they wanted to start reading sooner, I would make it available to them sooner. I think at about the age of 10, that's about the age when they can make the best of this. I think earlier than that, I'm not sure they would get the meaning behind a lot of what happens in the book. So perhaps younger than that is a bit too young for it. But I think that it's a fantastic story for children, and I want to promote it more. That said, given that the Folio Society edition has gone out of stock so soon, maybe I don't need to. Maybe there's loads of people out there who love it. And if that's the case, I am so happy, because this is one of my all-time favourite books. And I want more people to love it. Because I have never, ever heard anyone on all of Booktube talk about this book. I am the only person who I think has ever mentioned it. And given that I follow over 150 booktubers who talk about fantasy fiction, and not a single one has mentioned the Neverending Story, that makes me wonder how many people have actually read it. I want more people to read it. I want more people to experience it, even if they don't enjoy it, even if they find it hackneyed and trite, even if they think that it's not particularly great. Maybe as an adult it doesn't read as well. I'm not sure, because I have so much nostalgia and love attached to this book, and I've not read it in a couple of years, so maybe it doesn't hold up. I'm going to read it again. I'm going to find out now that I've got this lovely edition. And even if it doesn't hold up, I'm still going to love this book because of what it meant to me as a child. Even if it doesn't hold up, because I tried reading the Roald Dahl books recently, and I tried reading the Twits, which really doesn't hold up as an adult. It's very much a children's book. But the Roald Dahl books meant a lot to me as a child. So I still love them for what they meant to me then. And I would still give them to a child because of what they will mean to them. Because even though they're silly and stupid books that don't mean anything to me as an adult, and they read terribly for an adult, they're not for me. They're for young me, little me. And little me loved them. So they're a success. And that's what I wanted to say. So if you've never read The Neverending Story, give it a chance. Check it out. You can get it on ebook. You can find paperbacks of it. It's not quite as readily available as some of the others, but there are multiple paperback editions of it that you can find around on Amazon and a few different shops. So it's not one of those books that's gone out of print or anything like that. It's reasonably attainable for under a tenner. So give it a try and let me know what you think, because I want more people to read this book. Thank you for thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.